Hey everyone, today we're continuing our series about the Waterfront East LRT, why it's important for Toronto, how we can get it built sooner and cheaper. We'll also be speaking to transportation consultant David Cooper and global transit YouTuber Reece about what makes this project so influential. In case you don't know much about the Waterfront East LRT, you can watch my previous video about the project, but as a quick overview, it's been a long proposed streetcar route that would operate in its own right-of-way from Union Station to the under-construction Villiers Island and link into the existing Queens Quay streetcar that runs all the way to Exhibition. The project is currently in the design phase, and this video hopes to explain why it urgently needs more funding so that construction can start as soon as possible. When asking why we need the Waterfront East LRT, you only need to look at its sister project on Queens Quay West to see that the majority of trips are made using the streetcar or active transportation. Replicating this with the Waterfront East LRT is crucial for several reasons, from financial gains for the city to environmental benefits and reduced traffic. Not to mention the clear demand for better transit based on how busy the sidewalks, bike lanes, and buses on the eastern waterfront already get on a daily basis.
So one of the great things Toronto's done with the waterfront is built out the Waterfront LRT from Bathurst down to Bay Street up to Union Station. When we actually look at the design of the Waterfront LRT, it permeates right into the pedestrian realm. It provides its own dedicated right-of-way. It's something that we don't see in a lot of cities, and there's something that we can really build on the success of the Waterfront LRT, the existing one, and when we look at it going more east into further lands in the waterfront.
Not only would the presence of a streetcar on the eastern waterfront lead to fewer emissions from cars, but it would also lead to a healthier community of more than 100,000 people. The Waterfront East LRT doesn't just extend the streetcar, but it also extends the pedestrian-focused streetscape, which features high-quality walking and cycling infrastructure. Studies have found that communities which are centered around active transportation and public transit often have healthier citizens because these modes require more physical activity than driving. There are also mental health benefits to these modes, especially walking and cycling, which again are usually part of the first and last mile of a transit commute. Improving physical and mental health is crucial for communities on its own, but in this case those benefits would boost productivity and reduce healthcare costs, leading to Toronto being a much more successful city.
This is a small portion of the city and a small portion of the waterfront as a whole, but it's a very central part of the waterfront. And so I think that you have to look at the space, but also kind of the importance and the density, right? These are areas abutting some of the densest neighborhoods in Canada, frankly, and neighborhoods that are seeing a lot of additional development pressure.
Without the Waterfront East LRT, we're really inhibiting our ability to build out segments of our waterfront. We have a lot of different transit construction that's going on with the Ontario line, GO electrification, the recent opening of the Cherry Street extension of the King streetcar. But our ability to actually maximize these transit investments without having the Waterfront LRT, but also the housing and the employment opportunities is really inhibited without having this project.
While the Waterfront East LRT could be built at any time, it would be a missed opportunity to not build it before the waterfront has been fully developed, because it's usually a lot cheaper and less disruptive to build transit before a neighborhood has been fully developed. For any community, the mode of transit that's prioritized is the one people will use. If there are lots of roads, people will drive. If there are bike lanes, people will cycle. And if you build good transit, people will use it. This is why transit-oriented developments, like the one at East Harbour just a couple kilometers away, are so important. By building large amounts of housing, shops, and jobs next to a transit hub at the same time, it ensures that most of new residents will use transit, leading to a healthier community and planet. On the eastern waterfront, we had a chance to build a huge new community centered around high-quality transit, but because of a lack of funding, we missed an opportunity. That doesn't mean all hope is lost, though. There is still almost 2 kilometers of the Waterfront East LRT route where new housing hasn't been built yet. If we can get the streetcar, or at least the tracks, built now, along with the extensions of Queens Quay, and fill in the meadow on Cherry Street, it would be a lot easier to bring new residents onto transit. Now, of course, the rest of the route would need to be built quickly, but I think building these sections like Quayside and Villiers Island first needs to be prioritized because they haven't been built yet. Building transit in a dense urban area, or in a built-up area for that matter, is more disruptive and costly than on a blank slate, and it's a rare opportunity for Toronto to take advantage of.
So in terms of actually improving the streetcars, there's a lot of things we can do. Since we're designing the entire neighborhood from scratch in a place like Villiers Island, we can really think about things like signal timing. Like there's no reason the streetcars shouldn't get kind of a passive priority to ensure that they move quickly and cars still move, but they're not prioritized in the way that transit, which is moving more people, is going to be prioritized. And
Infrastructure projects are expensive, and the Waterfront East LRT is no different. With a couple $1 billion price tag to connect Union Station and Villiers Island, there's been a lot of future proofing on Villiers Island with both the right of way and bridge already in place. But the rest of the project will require a complete rebuild of Queens Quay, and between Union and Queens Quay, a rebuild of the tunnel and underground stations will need to be built.
One of the things that developer looks at when they want to build housing near transit and do transit-oriented development is they want to have that guarantee of service. And what gives a guarantee of service is the guarantee of infrastructure. That's literally having rails in the ground. If we look at transit-oriented development opportunities all across North America and beyond, you'll see that there's a lot of different growth and development that occurs when we have rail-based transit. And what's happening is I think we are really losing our ability to fully realize the potential of the water eastern parts of the waterfront because we don't have that rail-based transit.
there are real effects in terms of investing in rail that create a sense of permanence for people. And yes, there are ways you can emulate that with buses, with nice busways, nicer stops. These are things that I think we should consider doing. But ultimately, I think rail is a clear final destination. And in this case, it doesn't need to be super expensive because again, we have the plan, we can set aside the space for it.
So, building the Waterfront East LRT instead of just a busway would provide better capacity and be more attractive to prospective riders, both because trains tend to be seen in a better light than buses, but more importantly, because people like the assurance that a train service will almost always be there, whereas a bus route that can be removed in an instant. Based off of findings from an economic impact study made for the Waterfront BIA in 2019, building the Waterfront East LRT sooner is expected to lead to an increase in property values, which in turn results in an increase in property tax revenue for the city. So while the project is expensive, it also leads to tangible tax income for the city. Aside from the increase in property values and the already mentioned reduced healthcare costs, transit cost inflation has been hitting North America hard. So the longer we take to get shovels in the ground, the more expensive this project is going to become. As the eastern waterfront continues to grow, new residents will become accustomed to driving, cycling, or even walking. There are going to be a lot of people who won't use the streetcar, especially if they've already invested a lot of money into a good car or bike. Convincing people to change modes of travel is a lot harder than building the transit first and getting the riders from day one. Finally, while the Waterfront East LRT is hugely important, Toronto shouldn't limit its waterfront to just one transit route. We have the Ontario line passing right by Villiers Island and the future Keating Channel precinct, but likely because of the slope trains will be traveling on getting from a tunnel to the surface, there are no plans to build a station here or even protect for an infill one. Along the eastern waterfront, Cherry Street is still where there's the most potential for new transit, with an extension of the existing Cherry streetcar farther south being planned, but we should also be looking into building a GO station at Cherry, with another one at Jarvis or Sherburne. Over the next 10 years or so, GO expansion will be bringing every 5 to 10 minute service to the Lakeshore and Stouffville GO lines, and with Ontario's One Fare program, using GO would be comparable price-wise and speed-wise to the TTC for trips within the city, making a station at Cherry even more useful. The Waterfront East LRT will deliver faster, more reliable options to get around Toronto's waterfront, making it easier for well over 100,000 people to reach major destinations by transit, but also by improved active transportation infrastructure brought on by the rebuild of Queens Quay. By providing high quality transit on Toronto's waterfront, we work towards a more efficient and healthier city. A special thanks to David Cooper from Leading Mobility and Reece Martin from RM Transit for speaking with me about the project. Thanks for watching.